I made a video about all of the books I read in autumn, but I'm also gonna make a video about all the things I want to read this winter. So I split up my seasons within 3 months. I don't care about the exact dates. Anyone who does is not somebody that I particularly need to be friends with. So it's gonna be December, January, or February, and I wanna try and prepare on what I'm gonna read. Sometimes I do just get distracted. Like, I am an innocent little girl, okay? There are so many books and I'm like, I'm gonna read this, and then I just don't, because I'm just not in the mood, or the book doesn't catch me immediately. I'm getting better, however, at DNFing. I am somebody who has never DNF'd. I don't DNF. I don't particularly like it because I don't know, I'm like, I wanted to read this for so long. Why can I not give my whole attention to it? Doesn't matter. That's not the problem. The problem is, however, that I have maybe committed to too many books. So let's get straight to it. I've actually split them up into the 3 months. I don't know if I will do this exactly, but I've been quite ambitious, but I'm also not that ambitious. But that I've been ambitious for what I think I can do, but I'm also I've done this before, so perhaps I can do it again. First book that I want to read is poetry. I think poetry, starting with poetry, or just sort of laying out poetry for the whole of the 3 months, or 2 months, I think it'll probably take me 2 months to read it, is good, because I'm not that good with poetry and I want to get better. So I have 2 books to sort of let myself get better, or help myself get better, and that is Devotions by Mary Oliver, and then her poetry handbook. So Devotions is a collection of lots of her work that are sort of just put together, sort of embrace her work. I read Felicity earlier this year, I think around February, and I really liked it. It was a lot different to what I thought. It was quite religious, which I wasn't expecting, but I really liked her work, and I thought it was something that was actually understandable to me. I'm not very good with poetry and I want to get better. However, I don't think that I've always given myself the best chances with that. I want to read the best poetry, but that sometimes means that it's really complicated. I tried to read Ocean Vuong poetry collection, one of them, and I found it really difficult. It was just so above my head. I'm not the target audience for that. I just felt so stupid. I know a lot of people like his book, and I feel like maybe reading his prose would help, but I could not understand loads of the poems. I understood some of them. I wasn't totally stupid. I have an English degree, but I genuinely found it so hard to read them. So I want to read Devotions, and then I want to read her poetry handbook, which kind of helps you, I think it's more for writing poetry, but I want to help myself sort of maybe write some poetry, but also just understand poetry and what makes poetry and how to sort of decipher poetry, because it's something that, as someone who really likes literature, is definitely my sore spot. It's something that I don't understand as much. The next one is called Abolition Feminism Now, and that is by Angela Davis, and I keep telling people on the internet that I want to read this, and I don't. It's not even that dense, it's really not even that dense, so I don't know. I really like Angela Davis. I think another big reason perhaps why I haven't— oh my god, there's a stain. I'm actually so disgusting anyway. It's very America-centric, and I am British, so it doesn't really have too much of a say of what will happen to me, but I still want to have some good talking points. It's something that I truly believe in. Abolition is something that I've believed in for years now, but I just don't really have the talking points or the vocabulary to have conversations about it. So I think maybe reading this would establish a knowledge base of what I should be knowing about abolition to sort of talk about it. I know because things like rape is a big reason why people don't like the idea of abolition, and obviously I think this book will cover it, considering it's called Abolition Feminism Now, and it's written by women, and it's written by Angela Davis, who is obviously a radical in many, many ways. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot, and hopefully I'll read it, especially since I'm giving myself this December way less to read. So there's 2 more things to read in December, and I just think these are a bit more chill. Poetry handbook, Devotions, Devotions is a poetry collection. I'm allowed to spend until the end of the end of January to read it if I want to, and it's giving myself a bit more breathing room, especially since I'm still job hunting. Job hunting is so much just annoying. It's the worst thing ever, and so I don't have as much time to devote to reading as I perhaps did in the earlier months of the year. I probably will get to 100 books this year. It's the first time in my life that I think I've ever read that. The only time I think I could have possibly ever read that as well is maybe in year 3, when I would have been reading really short books, and maybe like altogether that would have gone to 100, but since then I don't think I've ever read 100 books, and this is the first year in a very, very long time, so I'm really excited, and I'll definitely get there, but I'm going to let myself get there slowly because I don't want to rush myself this December. So the next thing is some Emily Dickinson poetry. So again, another poetry. I don't really know which one yet because from what I can see on Goodreads, there's only one, and that is like all of her poems, and I'm like, I don't want to read all of her poems. Does she not have like smaller collected poems? And they don't really have names. I don't really know much about Emily Dickinson. She's obviously a part of the canon in America, but I'm British and we don't really care about American poets that much, even when we're like in our later years. Obviously I have a degree, we did not care about American poets there. We don't care about American poets at A-levels. It's just not something that we cared about. Much preferred, honestly, modern poets, like the people who are sort of like the poet laureates of our country like right now, and World War poets. We were really into World War poets all throughout school. It's something that comes up constantly, but no Emily Dickinson. So I want to give that a go for another reason I will explain later. And the last thing I want to read is Wuthering Heights. I don't know why I've got a itch to read this right now, but I just do. I watched Emily, let me just double check whether that movie is definitely called Emily. Emily the movie with Emma Mackey. Yes, that's definitely what it's called. It's called Emily, and it's the movie. And I watched the premiere of that at the BFI during the BFI Film Festival last year, and I really liked it. It wasn't like my favourite thing, but it's about Emily Bronte, but I came away from it not really care about the movie, but really, really wanting to read Wuthering Heights. So I haven't fulfilled myself for that. I wanted to read it like last November, around the time that I watched it. November has more of the vibe that perhaps Wuthering Heights is giving off. I don't know, I am intrigued and I want to read it, and if I don't, then that's fine. The only book that I'm thinking of maybe swapping out Wuthering Heights for, if I feel like it really just doesn't fit the vibe of like December as a more festive and fun upbeat season, is The Afterlife of Holly Chase, which is basically like a Scrooge story. I might read that instead, but at the moment this is what I've got going. A lot of very easy reads so that I can make sure I can finish my Goodreads reading challenge. Whereas I finished my Goodreads reading challenge ages ago. I just mean I kind of reset it to 100 because I wanted to read 100 books because I thought I was like getting near there, so I might give myself a push to make sure I got there. But yeah, that is my December reading list. January. Okay, so this is where we get some more like time constraint stuff. So I'm going to see Hamnet on the West End in January, and I really want to read it before I go see it. I don't really know why, considering I actually don't think that's something that I like doing anymore. I used to love doing that. I used to be like, I have to read the book before I go see it in the movie. Like I remember just not watching movies just because I hadn't read them yet. I was like, okay, I will get around to reading this and then I will watch the movie. But now I'm like, I don't even want to. Like I've not gone to see Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes because I've read the book and I was like, oh, I know what happens. Like, don't get. Which is such a weird thing because I used to love watching adaptations after I read them. It used to be my thing. It used to be the whole thing I was known for. But now I'm like, I didn't even want to go to the cinema to see it. Even though I have a Cineworld pass, I could go watch it for free anytime I wanted, but I just don't. Anyway, I'm going to probably watch that soon. But more importantly, I'm going to read Hamnet. I will read Hamnet. I promise, I will read Hamnet. I think it's going to be good. I really liked The Goldfinch, which was another winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction. And this also won the Women's Prize for Fiction, I think like 2 years ago. And so I have good faith in what the Women's Prize for Fiction chooses as their winners. So I'm excited to read this more than I was before I read The Goldfinch, because I'm like, oh, you guys really have some good picks. Yes, this is about Shakespeare's son and basically the fact that he dies, I think? I think it's about after the son dies? I can't remember, but it's gonna happen. I'm gonna go watch the play, I'm gonna read this book, and I'm gonna create a medieval vibe this month of January because the next thing I want to read is Lapfona. I sat here in this exact same position in another video telling you that I would read from Lapfona. Have I read Lapfona since that? No. I have not read Lapfona since then. I will though, I will. I'm putting this down, I'm gonna read Lapfona. So Lapfona is about this boy who is like part of this fiefdom, which is like a little town like run by a feudal lord, and there are loads of these natural disasters happening there and they're like besieged by it, and he gets like caught up in this weird storm of like power there, and that is going to be interesting. I really like Otesha Masveg's writing, and it's odd, like this story sounds odd. My Year of Rest and Relaxation was also weird, so I'm happy to just go with weird. I'm happy with weird. So hopefully it's good, and I really like the cover of it, so that's also something that's really motivating me. Plus I have the physical copy of it, so that's another reason to motivate me. Hopefully I will be able to just take that around with me and read it and finish it finally. The next one is The Marriage Portrait. So this is another book by Maggie O'Farrell, who also wrote Hamlet. I didn't think I said that. The book is about the poem The Last Duchess. I wrote a whole essay on this when I was in like year 11. I really like that poem and it's one of my formative memories and I want to read the book based on that. It's basically about their relationship, the Duchess and Duke of Ferrara, I assume, and it's really toxic because he basically is super jealous of anyone who talks to her. And I want to see it in action. I like reading about rich royal people because they have more going on for them than some poor people. But not to say that Lapvona won't have a lot going on for it, just because it's about a little shepherd boy. But I know the story behind this book, so I'm even more excited than I am for Hamlet. Because like when Hamlet had all the hype, when it was like winning the awards and blah blah blah, I was like, whatever, you know, like whatever. Like I'm mainly reading it because I'm going to go see the play, and the play got really good reviews, which is why I'm going to go see it. The next theme of January is like books by authors I've read this year that I really liked, that I want to continue reading. Because I didn't read anything that was a sequel that wasn't like in a series. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't read a book by the same author basically again. So one of the ones that I really liked was Convenience Store Women, so I really want to read Earthlings. I know it's really weird, I know it's apparently really kooky and odd and freaky, and I don't mind, okay? I'm happy, I'm down with that vibe. I don't mind as long as she's gonna be writing it, because I really liked the odd vibes that came from Convenience Store Women. Like, honestly, I did feel like she was autistic more than anything else. I didn't feel like she was like a insane woman. I feel like she had some sort of neurodivergency. Maybe again, neurodivergency, maybe absolute insane batshit crazy plotline this time, because I've heard this one's a little bit like balls to the wall crazy, and honestly I'm down for the ride. Her writing had me gripped. I think about Convenience Store Women maybe once every other week at least, so this book is, you know, definitely on the forefront of my mind, but it's just like not something I want to read in December. I'm gonna let it breathe and we'll catch up in January. The last thing I want to read in January is Breasts and Eggs. So this is by Mieko Kawakami, who also wrote Heaven, which I read last year for the same like video that I read Convenience Store Women for. And I really liked that book. I thought the ideas and the characters and the sort of like loneliness that was running through that book was so well written and structured. I felt so in tune with all the characters, and hopefully this one is too. So Breasts and Eggs is about this woman, or like this family, that go to Tokyo because one of them is getting her boobs done, and basically it's just about this relationship between a family and these women and their like mortality and age and the way that they kind of view themselves. I think it's a very sort of introspective novel, and I'm very excited to read it because I really liked the way that she looked at the body last time, and just social and, you know, societal issues in the last book was very good. It was very gripping and it had me very emotional at many times throughout that book. So this one specifically looking at women and the issues that like pertain to women, I think I'm gonna like it perhaps even more than I liked Heaven, even though I really did like Heaven. The last month is obviously February in winter, and what I'm gonna do for winter is read romance. I'm single, I know, it's a depressing time for us, but I don't care. I don't mind soaking in that energy, okay? My mum runs a florist, okay? It's a very busy month for me and my family because we have just flower orders up our fucking arse, like it's everywhere, just flowers. So it doesn't matter, like I don't really see Valentine's Day as this sort of like source of emotional turmoil because I'm single. I see it more as a business venture because it's how we get loads of our money. So I don't mind reading romance books. I'm just like soaking in the energy of that vibe, of the capitalistic vibe, considering me and my family live off that capitalistic vibe. The first book that I want to read is We Are Inevitable. This is by Gail Forman. If you did not like live throughout the If I Stay phase of like 2015, 2014, you don't know Gail Forman like I do. Okay, so Gail Forman wrote that book and then it got adapted into a movie, and Chloe Grace Moretz was in that movie, and it was like a bit of a craze for like 3-4 months in 2014. It was one of those like YA adaptation novels back in the day. It was a big thing. It was around the same time as like Fault in Our Stars. This girl, she goes into a coma, and it's basically about that. Anyway, that's my relationship with Gail Forman, and so I trust her to make an interesting book, because I remember really liking that one. I didn't read the sequel, I think there was a sequel to that book, but I read the first one and I liked it, and I liked the movie too, so I'm gonna give this one a go. And this is about a guy who believes that his friends and like everyone has kind of gone past him, like not outgrown him, but they've gone on to do other things. Well, he stayed in his town and he feels like he's been left behind, and I feel like that. I feel like I've been left behind and that I'm running out of time, even though I'm not. But it just feels odd when your friends and your family are doing other things but you're not, and that is an interesting kind of concept to explore, and I'm very excited to see that in this book. I know this one's gonna have a good ending because it is like a rom-com. It's not a rom-com, I don't think it's a com, I think it's just rom. So we know that the romance aspect is gonna come true and they're not gonna be single by the end of it and he's gonna be happy, but I can't say I'm the same for myself, but that's gonna be fine. I'm happy just to explore the ideas of perhaps being left behind and feeling like you need to do some more catching up. Especially when he's literally, I think he's like 19. He's like younger than I am. I think his like friends just go off to college while he's decided not to. The second book that I've got is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secret of the Universe. So this is the first book in a series. I don't think I'll read the second one. I just want to read this. This has been on my radar since it came out. When did it come out? 2012. Okay, it hasn't been. So since like 2013, it's been on my radar. It's 2023. I have not read it yet. I don't even know any spoilers. Do you know that? Like, I actually don't know what it's about, and I refuse to look it up. I will read this and I will crack open that book, and that will be the first time I understand what's happening in this book. I love the cover. Like, this cover has haunted me for 10 years, and I think it's beautiful. I love it, and I want to read this book, and I want to feel what everyone else feels when they read this book, because this is, again, one of those books that's been languishing on my Goodreads TBR for literally, like, years and years. And I think I've taken this off and put it back on a couple times, so it's definitely one that's had its like fair share of rotation, but it's definitely one that I've been wanting to read for a while, and I think I'm gonna get around to it. I like romance. I just don't really like rom-coms. I don't think this is a com. I think this is just rom, which is really, that's what I like to see. I like rom more than I like the rom-com when it comes to books. I like rom-com movies, but rom-com books don't really hit for me, so hopefully I will get what I want out of that book. Hopefully I see what everyone else sees in that book, because everyone hypes this up so high. So hopefully I'm gonna give it like 4 stars at least. I wanna be where the people are. The next book I wanna read is Pondweed. So this is a book that basically has like no ratings. I don't know who would recommend this to me. I think ages ago, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting plotline, like when I looked it up on Goodreads. And I've never taken it off because I've never read anything like this. It's about 2 60-year-olds who are like high school sweethearts, and they go on this road trip like through like England, and I'm like, that sounds sick. I don't know why I'm so intrigued by this actual book, because it could be bad, could really be bad. Again, another romance book, I think, and it's about life and world. It's a contemporary literary novel, I think, and I am interested to figuring out what the whole concept of this is. Like, are we gonna see positive things happen to these 60-year-olds or negative things happen to these 60-year-olds? Because that is not specified anywhere in the description and in the reviews, because only like 50 people have reviewed this book. So I literally don't know, but perhaps it's bad things and I will be really upset reading this. But I really like the cover as well. Like, I think the cover is really pretty. I really love the premise of this like old people going on a road trip, because number one, old people actually go on road trips all the time, right? Especially old English people. But like, there's no stories about that. That's not something that people talk about. So I'm intrigued. But I also don't really like stories about old people. So I'm also a little bit like in the middle of that, because I read The Switch, which is by Beth O'Leary, earlier this year. And there's this whole section of this book that's about the grandma. So the whole premise of that book is that there's a grandma and her granddaughter, and they swap places. They live in each other's houses. So she moves like up north, and then the grandma moves to her like flat in London, and they sort of like pursue lives in either place, right? And that's fine and good and whatnot, but the grandma is so like, I don't care, grandma, like leave me alone, grandma, please. I just didn't want to read about her. And so I'm like, what if that happens during this book? Regardless, I'm gonna stick to it. I've had this on my to read for about 3 years, I think, since it came out. So I'm committed. I'm committed to having this read. I will DNF though if I don't like it. I think this is one of the ones where I'm like, perhaps this is going to be a DNF situation. There's not enough reviews. I can't infer on what perhaps might happen in this. So the rest of the books in this is actually part of what I want to do in February, which is to read some books that are set in the Regency era. I don't know why, but I do have like a personal fascination with the Regency era. I think it's just because I really like Jane Austen, and she obviously wrote in that era because that's when she was alive. And obviously Bridgerton and all the nice, really lovely kind of period dramas that we get are from that era. So I think, again, I'm just more in tuned to that kind of setting, and I know some stuff about it now, like, because I've seen so much and consumed so much, both by reading and watching and loving all of that kind of thing. That's why I wanted to read the Emily Dickinson stuff, because I want to watch the show Dickinson. I know it got cancelled, but I really like Haley Steinfeld, and I've never watched it, and I've never even really understood what it was about, because honestly, Apple TV never does any promo. Except for Ted Lasso, it doesn't do any promo. I'm like, they have some incredible shows on there. I highly recommend watching Pachinko on Apple TV, because if you haven't seen that, it's very, very good. Such high quality, so interesting, and no one knows that it exists because they won't promote it. So I want to also read the book Reputation. So Reputation is a book about this girl who lives in the Regency era. She has no money, I think, and so she has to go live with her aunt and uncle, and they have like a really dreary life, but then it gets jazzed up when she meets this guy, when she's like at a ball, and it changes her life. And it's about salacious gossip in the London scene in the Regency era, and obviously Bridgerton has to be primed to enjoy this kind of content, and I think it's going to be good. I really don't like Bridgerton's sort of colourblind casting, which is not the case here. I think there's actual characters of colour who are meant to be characters of colour, which I always enjoy more than colourblind casting, because I think colourblind casting doesn't take into consideration this idea that race relations to the whole world exist, and I don't think Bridgerton does a very good job of understanding or how race plays a part in that world. I'm just very critical of Bridgerton as much as I like Bridgerton, whereas this, I'm excited to see what this has on board. Again, lots of positive reviews for Reputation, so I am excited. I also want to read that while I'm watching the show The Buccaneers. So again, that's one of those like melodramatic, over the top show. It's a teen show, but it's set in the Regency era, and I love a good, you know, over the top teen show. You know, I watched Riverdale for far too many seasons, if you know what I mean. And that is something that I will transfer into any aspect of my life, including Regency era teen dramas. So I will be probably reading them and watching that at the same time, really maximize the Regency vibes that I can get there. So the other things that I want to read are two cozy fantasy books set in the Regency era. The first one is Half a Soul. So this one is about a girl who's doesn't have a sense of embarrassment, and that kind of gets her in trouble in the London scene. Again, I keep calling it scene because I think that's what they call it. Like in that time, you're like, when you debut and therefore you're allowed to get married and you're put on the scene. That's what you're at, you're on the scene. And she basically just stirs up a mess during this time, and the curse on her to give her no embarrassment causes some issues for her during this time where she's meant to be, you know, a good proper woman trying to get married. My camera would bloody die right before the end of the video, wouldn't it? So let me just go through the last book, and it's an absolute mouthful to say, so I'm gonna read it off. So it's The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. I'm a little scared of reading this book, I can't lie. I'm putting my hands up and saying that because all of the other books, whether or not I love them, you know I'm going to like them because there's aspects that I like. This one, I know there's a big aspect in this that I don't like, and that is rom-com. I've realised, I've come to put my hands together, I don't really like rom-coms, and this is a rom-com, but it's a cozy fantasy rom-com type thing. It's not really cozy, is it? It's just fantasy, but it's not like serious. It's just like a little bit serious. And sometimes I think when a book is like that, it doesn't have stakes that are interesting, and hopefully the stakes are interesting. So this is about a woman who is a thief, and she needs to save her aunt, and she uses the help of this guy who's sort of got a crush on her, but he's also an assassin, and he's come to assassinate her, and they have to team up together to save her aunt, basically, and save England, because it's a plot to, like, demolish England, and low-key, kind of there with you. I'm there with you. Fuck this country. I don't know if I'm gonna love it. Good chance I really like it if the chemistry is good. There's a chance that I really hate it if it's not good and it's cringe. Like if the characters are too serious and take themselves a little bit too seriously, I'm really not gonna like this book. But if they have good chemistry and they're like hot and sexy and fun, then I might like this book. But that's my last Regency pick and the last pick that I have for the next couple of months. That overall is how many books? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 books in 3 months. I think that is achievable, especially since some of these are kind of short and here or there. Hopefully I've got this in the bag because I really think this could be a good couple of months of reading if I'm able to do this. I do think though I am prone to being strayed away, but for now I think I've got this under wraps. I think I'm gonna read this and it's gonna be a good time. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you would give me a like if you liked it and maybe subscribe if you liked the video, and if you have any opinions on any of these, if you've already read them or if you've heard of them, I'd love for you to drop that below just because I want some opinions on whether or not I should read these because again, DNFing, I'm picking up DNFing. That's going to become a habit from now on. I'm not going to make myself stress and read things I don't like because after reading The Priory of the Orange Tree, which is an 800-page book that I did not like, I refuse to do that to myself anymore. I would take on the burden of DNFing a book even though I bought it or even though I've got the audiobook or whatever. Like I will commit to picking up and putting down books. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you had a great day. Hope you have a great week and goodbye.